Hello, glorious people. Flea and I are still bopping along. I love that little tune. What a great selection, Flea. It makes me feel good before we go on. And welcome everybody to Age of Awæcnian, Soulful Stories Unveiled. And we have another beautiful guest. It has been a while. I feel like it's been a while. Did we go anyway? I'm in one of those. We were talking about disruption before, and my brain feels like it's constantly in disruption mode and thinking of different things. How are you feeling today, Flea?
Oh, besides, once again, the tech issues, and thanks everybody at home for the patience while I slowly, robotically seem to transform on stage. We will just continue to go with whatever happens. And if you hear me, you can hear me, and that's fantastic. Yay. That's how I'm feeling.
And look, guys, we've got the new moon, lots of new things coming through. So noticing any, I suppose, disruptions, old patterns, big emotions coming through. I know the last week I've had lots of really big emotions, and I've cried pretty much for 5 days in a row for different things. And my body's like, you need to just cry it out. And I'm like, oh gosh, okay, I'm so tired. And the energy in the release is beautiful, but it's also exhausting. What was that card that came up?
The suffering in silence.
Mm,
We all
yeah,
do this, don't we?
yeah. And I feel having spaces like this where we get to share what's alive for us, what's alive for our guests that come on is a really beautiful way to shift that awareness and to alchemize by talking, by sharing stories, so that we don't feel like we're suffering alone. Because this aloneness that is so ingrained in humanity, like we all feel alone at one point or another, or multiple points, and we do feel that sense of hopelessness and loss and hardship and all the things. But I think when we come together and we share stories, we can also bring that sense of hope and empowerment and love. And that leads to our next beautiful guest, Gwenda, who is a leader in holistic natural healing, complementary medicine, and self-healing. And I suppose the emotional body, self-healing, all of these beautiful things that we've just been touching on is part of what you love to do. And she's a driven, dedicated spiritual mentor, taking students on a pathway of ascension and transformation. And Gwenda is a dynamic, warm, and inspiring and powerfully internationally recognized speaker with such a big mission on her heart. And it has been so wonderful to also get to know you, Gwenda, through Awæcnian Academy. And you're also one of our speakers for our summit that's happening in about 2 weeks' time, which is very exciting. Welcome, Gwenda.
Good morning, Marie. Good morning, Flea. It's morning here, so good afternoon, good evening to everyone else around the world. It's a joy to be here, and oh yeah, am I excited and looking forward to coming over to see you in person over in beautiful Maroochydore. Yeah, not too many days away, 7 or 8.
Oh gosh, stop it. You just actually put a number on it. And I was like, oh, we've got 2 weeks. Okay. Yeah, there's a few things. I was like, we've got a few things to organize. So there's still a few more things in place. But folks, if you're listening in and you're in the Sunshine Coast area, Brisbane, Ipswich, Gold Coast, and you're willing to drive or fly like Gwenda is, she's flying all the way from the other side of the country to come and join us. We would so love you
Jetstar
to
has
be.
deals.
Oh, Jetstar has deals. Yeah, good one, good one. But we'd love to see you there, and you can come and connect in person. But your journey, Gwenda, we've touched a little bit about it in some other spaces where we've connected with you. But I'd love that we get to dive a little bit deeper. And so, I suppose, where has your journey started, Gwenda? Were you gifted, from birth? I know we all are potentially, but did you remember as a child, or did you develop over time these gifts that you have really mastered and stepped into?
Word gifts, thank you. Very, very appropriate, because to me they are a gift. Very special. Yes, we all have intuition, because after all, we are a divine being. So we all have incredible ability, incredible power. Did I come in with mine in a happening way? Yes. So I arrived in this world with mine intact and ready to go. The unfortunate thing is it didn't come with a little directory or how-to book to let me know that the see-through people and the other things that I could see, but no one else seemed to be taking any notice of. Yeah, there was no little book, dictionary or whatever reference book to go through, a workbook or anything like that. Not even a simple PDF for me to read and go, "What's this?" So, from my earliest age would be 4, where I used to talk about the nasty man that was under my bed. And of course, my parents would say, "There's no nasty man under your bed." And I can remember going to the threshold of my bedroom door and running as fast as I could. And I might tell you, I became a champion runner, running as fast as I could and leaping so that I didn't have to get close to where that nasty thing was under my bed. And when, not long before my dad passed, he told me something that he and mum had never talked about. And he said that I frightened the living daylights out of them when I was 5. They came into the room to say goodnight and check on the kids, myself and my younger sister. As parents do, your last goodnight. And he said I wasn't in bed. I wasn't there. And mum and he were like, "Well, did you see her? Where is she?" And he said they went all through the house looking for me, could not find me. Came back to the bedroom and they looked under the bed where I'd always said the nasty man was. And then they heard me giggling. And he said, "We turned around and you were on top of the wardrobe." And that frightened the wits out of them more than them not being able to find me, because they said, "How did she get up there?" Because this is in the early 60s. So the wardrobes back then didn't have steps on them, didn't have shelves in them, didn't have anything but a little keyhole and a key. And we did not, even if it had a chair in the room, for all the skeptics, even if it had a chair in the room, I was 5. So there's no way that I could use a chair and get up on this wardrobe. And mum and dad said that I was just sitting there swinging my legs, giggling as I was watching them move around the place looking for me. And my poor dad. So, yes, I had all of my gifts fly intact from little. And my ability to what they call teleport, not remote view, but if you think of Bewitched, the kids' film or whatever, Bewitched, I used to love Endora and go, "I can do that." And so when Endora used to appear in the corner of a room to harass her son-in-law that she loved so much, that's what I used to do if I wanted to check on anyone or see where they were at. And it was literally be there, not what do they call it, remote view or anything like that. I could actually go there. So yeah, that's been my path with my gifts. And then as I went into puberty and early teenage and all the hormones and things, they seemed to take a back seat. They didn't seem to be as prominent. It wasn't until I was around 15 or so there that they seemed to emerge again a lot stronger. And I knew that I could create balls of energy and use them,
Mm.
and that I did. And one of the girls, one of my friends at school, said that I used to scare the kids because I would start to sing a song and it would come on the radio, or I would start to say something and they said that was what they were going to say. And I didn't understand why that was a problem for them. I didn't understand why that was scary for them, because I wasn't trying to scare anyone. I was just singing or speaking what came. And then I began nursing, and when I was 16, and it was during my years of nursing that I had many encounters with the spirit, the soul of the person when they were in a coma, standing beside their physical self. And I just want everyone to know that if you have someone in a coma, they are there. They can hear you. They may not remember if they wake up, but at the time they can. I get called to the hospitals often to go and find out why someone can't be woken out of a coma, because I can communicate with them and see them. So during my nursing years, I had lots of amazing experiences with the soul, the spirit, and seeing them being gathered by either angels or by their own loved ones. So my nursing years were really the beginning of bringing all of my abilities into play, but I didn't know what to do with them. I didn't work them per se. I didn't have to. They're just who I am. And then I left nursing. I didn't feel that the system was really serving people the way that it should have. And I went into some other work, and I had many encounters with angels during that time. Absolutely beautiful encounters. And I began reading, seeing for people, having sittings for people when I was 25. And people would come to me from all around the world. So I began that service when I was 25, but always behind closed doors, never advertised, never talked about, because you got to remember it was still dangerous. And even sometimes now, don't talk too much about these things.
Mm.
What do you call it? The persecution is still it's still present,
Yeah.
but different. Thank goodness, those fires got a bit much after a while back in the day at the stake. So now it's different. And
Yeah.
and then I went on to become a master personal trainer. I wanted healing, self-healing, the power of healing, and it was really a profound experience as a nurse that was the catalyst to this journey now I've been on for over 40 years. And we were going to take a tumour out of a lady's abdomen. And this is in the 70s, so that was rare, not like now. We only opened her to her augmentum, and the surgeon said, suture up. So, suture up? We haven't done anything. And he saw the quizzical look in my eyes and he said, well, nurse, you can see the same thing as me. This lady has 14 days to live. I was, where'd you get that? What? Why 14? Why not 17? Why not 28? Why not 3? Why 14? And my head was
Mm.
spinning off my shoulders. Um, as you can gather, I was a scrub nurse. I went in to find out what makes the human body tick. After having nursed it externally, I wanted to understand more about the insides. And he then called the scout nurse over and he told her that he wanted the ward to let him know when the lady was awake enough to be spoken to. That doesn't mean she's awake like you and I and Flea at the moment. She'd had a major anaesthetic. And we got the call and he said that I was to go with him to give her the news. Now, to this day, that is not protocol. The scrub nurse does not go with the surgeon. On the way to her, he said, I want you to hold her hand while I give her the news. I was still confused, blown away. I yeah, just really, what's going on? So we got to this dear lady, and she was well under the influence of the anaesthetic. He gently put his hand down by her arm on the bed and spoke. And as soon as he spoke, she knew who he was. And she just smiled, through the anaesthetic. And then he told her that he had his senior scrub nurse with him and that I'd hold her hand. And she smiled. And then he said, when you are fully awake, I want the ward to call your husband and you're to go home. And she sort of started to frown because major surgery, in those days, you didn't go home straight after major surgery. And she was puzzled. And he said, in 8 days, I want you back in hospital because in 8 days you are going to be very unwell. Enjoy those 8 days at home. And now he had his hand, interesting enough, across her heart space.
Mm.
And now she was fighting to get past the anaesthetic. She was trying to really open her eyes, and tears began to form. Uh, um, and he said to her, enjoy your 8 days at home. Get everything in order. You have 14 days to live. And we walked away and left her in tears, and me too as we walked away. And still now, because I can still see her as clear as if it's right now. It was such a heart-wrenching experience. On the 8th day, Marie and Faye, I was actually on the ward because if we'd finished our list, we got sent to the wards. And I admitted her to the ward. I knew who she was. She didn't know who I was. And she was very unwell, just as he'd said. And I'm like, wow. So my head's still spinning with this surgeon saying 14 days and the 8 days. And then on the 14th day, I laid her out. And as I laid her out, I cried all the way through. I made a vow to her. There was just something in me that wanted her life to mean more than 14 days because that's the last thing
Mm.
she heard the surgeon say. And I don't know, there was just this thing in my heart. So as I laid her out, I must say I cried all the way through it. She wasn't an older lady. She had a young family. And I made a vow to her that in her name I would go on a quest to find just what is illness, disease, and dying. So that's the journey I've been on now for over 40 years.
Mm.
And it's been miraculous. It's been amazing. It's been frustrating. It's been incredible.
Mm.
And
Wow.
and then added to that, a young girl I met when she was 8, and I said, "Oh, one of my own kind," because I used to host witchy parties, and I would turn up to people's houses as the classic witch in the big pointy black hat, and the makeup, the long black robe, and the broom, and have a ball. To strangers' houses. And this little girl came out and I said, "Oh, one of my own kind. How nice to meet you." And it was like we recognized souls right away. She gelled to me immediately. Well, she was 8. And then when she was 11, her family called me to help her understand how to not see the things that she was seeing. And so I would teach her how to use a sleeping bag imagination, a banana skin to protect her and close them out. By 16, she started to be a hairdresser. Where do hairdressers touch everyone? Crown, around
Mm.
the
Mm.
eye and the shoulders. And she was bombarded with seeing, literally seeing when someone was going to die, how they were going to die, what they had going on within them, like cancerous growths or anything like that. And she was just mortified. By 17 and 18, she wouldn't let me help her anymore. She would refuse for me to come to her. And then she just put herself through years of slow death. And at
Mm,
31, I did the eulogy at her funeral.
mm,
Um, and she turned up beside me after we put her ashes out to sea. And I said, Shona, what are you doing with me? You should be with your family. And she said, no, I've got something I want to ask you if you will do for me. I said, I would do anything for you. You knew I would do. And she said, stop. I don't want to hear that. I didn't want your help. I told you when I was 11, I don't want to be like you. I don't want to be like you. I don't want to see like you. I didn't want your help. I just wanted to leave this place.
mm,
So she was 31 when she left this world. Um, 10 years of a slow, awful time. And there she was looking amazing in spirit. And she said, I said, what is it that you want me to do then? And she said, I want you to look after other people like me so they don't have to be tormented like I was.
mm.
And I said, I could have done that. And she said, stop. Because I was going to say, I've done that for you. And she goes, stop. I didn't want you to.
Mm,
So from that, I have the spiritual school of Wesh, which is a legacy to Shona. And
mm,
Wesh, wisdom, enlightenment, self-healing. And that's her legacy. So
mm,
my work is really a dedication to the lady that I laid out when I was a young nurse and wanting her life to mean more than 14 days and
mm,
to Shona. So,
mm.
yeah. So
Wow.
that's what brings me to be in front of
Mm.
you and to join you on your journey.
Wow. So powerful. And, this is why I love this podcast and this show because we get to dive deep into the guests and people that we meet. And yeah, what a beautiful honoring and dedication. There was so many pieces in that, but just that last piece about choice and free will.
Yeah.
There is still a free will. And even
Yes.
though these gifts or these I'm going to still say gifts. These gifts come online, whether we choose to use them is still a soul choice,
It
which,
is a soul choice. You're right. It's not your choice. It's not a mind choice. Oh, I think today I'm going to be a clairvoyant. Oh, I think today I'm going to be, a shaman. It's not your mind choice. It is a soul essence choice.
yeah.
Mm.
Oh, I'm kind of lost for words because I'm like, so much of that, it didn't resonate in the same way that it normally would, but there was a deepness in the rejection of self that I definitely felt. Like I've had those things. I remember um like saying things to people. It's like, oh, the lady that lived, the lady that belonged to, she moved it, and things like that, and people calling me crazy, and no, you're just making it up, you've got a very good imagination, Felicia. It's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And like that was one of those identities I took on. I'm just too imaginative, it can't be real, it's just my imagination. So therefore, this idea, these things that keep popping up, it's like it's hard to deal with. And I know that over the last 46 years, I've been gifted lots of interactions with people where, like yourself, divinely guided, and just pop in kind of out of nowhere. It's like, oh, okay, beautiful. The learning that I get to receive from that, and I'm very much like you, except I want to know the mind. It's like, okay, I understand the behavior patterns. I understand how it connects with energy, but I still don't understand why, as people, we do what we do. It's like to know within. It's like the knowing. It's not the belief. It's not the falseness. It's not the lie or the things we're telling ourselves. To know within ourselves something, and then to go and do the opposite anyway. It's like this mindset that is present. This is what has been driving me, and it's very similar to your health journey there, where you're okay. I'm going to look at the body and how the body works and that death. I've been drawn to this, and some of the experiences that came to me was that in many lifetimes, I've had to make the choice whether to be spiritual or whether to be 3D normal or whatever. And in this lifetime, I've been gifted the ability to be both. So I've had to shift between both worlds like independently and co-executively my entire life. It's like I know it, but the logical part of me needs to explain it now. And this side of myself where it's like, okay, I can choose to reject it and I will be left alone. And I've been gifted that insight that if I choose to just live a normal life, then I will live a normal life. But the power and what I know it can do for humanity by accepting and continuing. So even with Marie, we talk about the structure that has to be present. We still live in the 3D. Like I love the spiritual realm, and I could easily go straight over to that side and escape the 3D and live in my fantasy land of everything. And I know that that is true for me, and it would be beautiful, just like the 3D reality would. But there's something in this fusion of bringing them together, this idea, this newness that humanity hasn't experienced yet, where we get to believe in the magic of ourself and in spirit and energy, as well as live this 3D reality for what it is, the experience. We actually have this knowledge now and the ability to share it with the world. And a lot of what you just said there just opens me up in that. It's like, yes, okay, I get it. Thank you. I'm hearing the messages again and again and again. I'm not going to ignore it. This is what we're here for. We're here to be both, not
Yeah,
one or
I
the other,
didn't.
not
Yeah.
separate.
I never had that conflict, Flea. To me, it was
Mm,
just me and it was just who I was. What I did learn was not to speak, was not to be so very open with what I could see, what I could hear, what I could smell. And I just had, I don't know, a divine trust that everything would work out, it would be okay. And so my readings for people, as I said, that started when I was 25, were always done privately, never out as a big grand show or anything like that. Plus, a reading is private anyway. So I just continued my work with the divine and lived my life as the 3D person. And that's the way I've always done it, in beautiful harmony and a
mm.
union. But it was for me to know not to express to the world until I was pushed out into the world by by the archangels and the divine. I was like, "Wow, what are you doing?" No, I'm good. I'm good with it all being
I'm
behind
safe.
closed doors. It's all happy back here. And they're like, "Nope, we need you to do this and need you to
Mm,
do that."
mm,
And that's where things got a little tricky. But again, I didn't resist. I found a way to meld it all as being me. So when I was a master personal trainer, I would use my ability to look in because I can see into the body and the etheric fields like an MRI machine can.
mm,
So, and of course, with my nursing background, I knew what I was looking at. With my theatre scrub experience, I
mm,
knew what I was looking at. And I would say something to my client like, you need XYZ, like, for example, and I would really encourage you to go and have a visit with a naturopath, a doctor, a whatever, you know. And they'd come back to me after, because I will say 99% of them would go and trundle off and do what I'd recommended. And they'd come back and go, how did you know? Because one lady said to me, how did you know that my fallopian tube was twisted and my ovary wasn't working? And I said, oh, did I not tell you I used to be a nurse? And then I would just carry on with the exercise and not go into, how did I know? And one
mm.
gentleman that rang me from the hospital bed and said, you saved my life. When he came back to train, he goes, how did you know my blood was as thick as molasses? And I said, oh,
Mm.
did I say that? Oh, must have been my nursing cap slipped back on again. And I would just put it through that way. And then one of my male clients said to another one night, I'm damn sure she can see straight into you. No, she says some stuff that I go, where'd she get that from? And I heard this as they went out the door and just smiled sweetly to myself. And then it's like, okay, 10 push-ups, thanks very much. back into, that mode. So
Mm,
I've never had that resistance within myself, and
mm,
it's just who I've always been and who I've always felt I've been. I came to this world with an Indigenous background, so I grew up with a lot of rejection and non-acceptance and name calling and so forth. So that kept me more busy in my life and wondering why people were the way they were than what my gifts did.
mm,
Right? And when it came to my gifts, I was just like, well, this is who I am. And I
yeah.
don't have to explain myself to anybody. But as I said back in the day, I also didn't say a lot. I learnt when
Mm,
I was 8 or whatever it was not to tell my schoolmates, oh, look at the lady over there in the window, because I made that mistake once, never made it again, because I got
mm,
left all by myself at the back of the bus and called names and had things thrown at me. Um, so I didn't say anything as a kid after that, but I
mm,
would always acknowledge and talk to spirit and talk to the angels. And I've had
mm,
beautiful interactions. Actually, Marie, you might like this. I recently have been automatic channeling, automatic writing with Archangel Raziel, writing in codes.
mm.
He actually drew the DNA code, my DNA code, and my soul code, and talked to me about the difference
Oh,
between the DNA codes and the soul code.
oh, I
That was
love
really
that.
cool.
Oh, that's so cool. And I know also Flea's been channeling coding and stuff as well, which is amazing. And I love this wisdom that you get to share because everyone's experiences are different. Like for me, I always knew there was something different. It was like that feeling of being the black sheep. Why did I
Yeah.
choose this family? And it was only in my later life to realize the gifts and the deep healing that I chose to do for the whole lineage. And then a whole heap of womb awakening experiences and openings and portals and wisdom that just started to come online. But there was always this feeling, this connection to this inner spark through source, God, universe, whatever people want to call it. But it was like I felt always alive when I would dance and move and feel free, even though it was choreographed and with music. There was a sense of freedom that I just loved. And interestingly, I feel that through the arts, through creativity, this divine connection to expression, to source and energy, like this wisdom has come particularly online for me in the last few years that, I get to share. But I also notice with children, working in schools, working in the arts, working with young people, the power of this way of being. And our kids are so designed for this new earth. They're so uh, you know aligned to remember. I was literally having a conversation with my daughter yesterday about psychic gifts, and I was talking to another friend and she was reading the text messages. She's like, yeah, mummy, I'm psychic too. And I'm like, I know you are. And she's like, I have dreams and they come true and it happens that day. And that's her life. She is starting to envisage and see what's going to come into her reality in her world because she dreams about her friends or seeing people. She's like, I saw that lady in my dream, and it's interesting now that we get to share more of this, like you said, being pushed into it's time because people are awake and awakening and remembering. And sometimes for those that maybe have been asleep, it will be overwhelming,
Oh, yeah.
perhaps like that young girl where it's like, I don't know how to deal with this, and she was tormented by it. When we have people like yourself, what we're building in this community, people that are experts and masters in their fields that can guide people to protect their energy or tap into it and find their purpose with that in order to help self, humanity, animals, plants, the land, whatever it is, and feel confident and in their power. And I feel this is really important because even like when you talked about teleporting in the first 5 minutes, I was like, oh my God, yes, because these gifts are coming more and more online. And it was interesting. It took me back to a story my mum was telling me in the Philippines, because that land again is very ancient in the Asian land there. But there are so many stories about, fairies stealing children or children disappearing, and then eventually they come back. And she would tell me stories that the fairies or the gnomes or the elves or something would take the children, and then sometimes they're like, well, that they either, I don't know, there were like all of these myths, and it's like interestingly they teleport somewhere they don't know, and it's like, yeah, it's fascinating to hear people's stories and their belief systems or myths or whatever it is, and trying to piece the pieces of the puzzle together, because it might not be a myth. Like my uncle, who's a witch doctor, but very medicine man, it's in the family. There's like giants in the where he lives, and he can't live in his own home because the giants have said, you can't live here anymore because this is our land. And then he doesn't. And it's interesting to hear their their stories and their how they then work with the space, the people, the energies that come to them, which I'm like, this is fascinating, which I love.
The magic has always been here, and all the different beings, the elementals, the Middle Earth people, they've always been here. But as we know, there are other powers that be that don't want all of that being accessed and don't want people to be able to tap in. So, as we know, lots of things have been used to distract, to actually cut off the ability to have that union with your true self, with your divine magical self. So the elemental kingdom have remained very strong and are still here, but all of the I'll use the word technology for all the EMFs and everything that's around does create disparity, and it makes it really hard for them to communicate. So one thing that I want to add in here too is the fact that all the magic has always been here. Everybody's ability to be aligned with the magic, to be aligned with the giants, with the elementals, with everything that's here. It's really quite a mesometopia, something like that, the magical realm of here. But this realm is also for that 3D experience. So when people think they're going to jump from 3D to 5 to 9 to 10, I'm like, have you mastered the 3D yet? Because you chose to come into the 3D, and the physical experience is an incredibly powerful experience for the soul and for its ascension. What's the good of going, oh, I'm popping up to 5D now, when you can't even manage the 3D? No, get your head around the 3D and learn to be grounded and cleansed and earthed and connect with everything that's here, that is full of magic and full of incredibleness. Then think about going to 5D. Because when you're
Yeah.
out of this physical body and you're back into being the beautiful divine essence that you are, well, you're in something far higher than the 5D, aren't you? So why not just hang out loose here, have a ball, and make this world work for you rather than letting it suck the life out of you? Make it be your life and live it to its absolute fullest with curiosity, with magic, with the power that you are, and create, because you do co-create. Somehow we've managed to do this and weave this so that we come together because the time is right. So never mind trying to skip out of the 3D. I always say to clients, have you mastered this one? Are you all good with self-acceptance, self-love,
Mm,
forgiveness? Can you heal your own body? Do you understand your own body?
mm.
No, not really, but it'll be easier in 5D. I'm like, really? Okay, let me know how you go with that.
that concept of the like all the different dimensions and everything, like I do understand it, and that's not where I was going with this, but it's something that only sort of came into my vocabulary in the last 2 years, maybe not even 2 years, yeah, maybe 2 years, um, very recent, and I'm like, okay, I get that, but to me, I've always kind of felt like, isn't that escapism? Isn't that doing the opposite of what, all of the spiritual concepts are teaching us? It's like, okay,
Mhm.
we're being taught to release the shadow. The shadow is evil. And it's like, well, the shadow is just your experience in the 3D. It's not evil. It's just your perception. So, okay, I've got to release that one. But you now want me to jump into this alternate reality, but I'm living here. Like, that's not possible. Like, seriously, people, like, are we delusional? My deeper dive into the quantum realms is it's the experience of the expression we get to live here. Going into the 5D, the 6D, take it as you wish. It's your experience here and your mindset in how you experience this reality that allows you to be in the 4D. 4D is just, to me, that bridge. So it's like, okay, yep, I'm in the 3D and I understand there is more. So my understanding, my perception has grown to the fourth dimension. I now understand there's more than just me. And if I want to go to the fifth dimension, okay, I now understand that I am all that is as well as all that isn't. It's a leveling up as such. It's your comprehension and your ability as a human being to comprehend the bigness of our existence. And it's
Without
not an
escaping
escape,
this one.
or torment.
Yeah.
Because
Without
the more you're
escaping
up
this
there, the more
one,
you're like,
kind of
why down here is everyone so horrid?
without trying to bypass. There's no bypassing in this life.
Mm,
When I speak at events and I ask, has anyone in the room lost someone from this life? If they passed, and of course, most people have. And then I ask them, have you ever wondered what happens when you die? And the energy, the way people pull away, and
mm,
the horror of it. And I think, well, see, if you had a greater awareness of consciousness, a greater awareness of who you really are, and what this world is about, you wouldn't have that sensation. I am not for 1 minute saying that grief isn't real. I'm not for 1 minute saying that losing someone is, oh, well, oh, well, go and pick a flower. No, not at all. I don't like losing people from this world, and I have the ability to connect with them in the next, but it's different, right?
Mm,
But you can't bypass things in this world and make like, oh, well, I'm just going to flip over there. What is important is to learn how to ascend yourself and learn how to take from your shadow self. I'm not really a fan of that, but take from your shadow self. How about you just take from other versions of yourself that has already had lived experience and is out of that has got a wealth of wisdom to offer you?
mm,
Make friends with your former self and ask your former self, what wisdom from that experience can you offer me for now that is going to
mm,
help me now?
mm,
Rather than treat it like it's like you said, Flea, it's my shadow self. I've got to get rid of that, or I've got to push it out there. No, it's a part of you, and it's a part of the way that you have journeyed this life so far. So it's rich for you. It should be
mm,
your friend for you to draw wisdom from. And then if you want to call in your higher self or a future version of yourself and see how that can serve you now, and I'm just going to put a little caveat on that, it's not always wise to do that, right?
yeah,
Because if you haven't mastered what you're going through now and what life has offered you now, you can actually thwart what your future self can do for you now. Because
mm,
after all, your future self is only a projection of how you manage to go through now, what you're learning,
yeah,
what you're experiencing now. If you want to go differently and take from a far greater version of you, then you need to meet with your higher self. Then you need to meet with the divine and be in alignment
Mm.
and working, living this life through the guidance of your higher self and of the divine connection. Oh,
Mm.
now that's where the magic is.
Yeah.
But the word Marie used before, choice, free
Mm.
will.
Mm.
It's all up to you. You make the choice. And if you don't want to be aligned with your higher self or with the divine, well, that's your free will. And have a ball
Mm.
while you make
Yeah.
that mess,
Yeah.
because that's what it will be.
Yeah. What
You
beautiful
you did
advice.
summarize it really, you did summarize it really nicely there with your sentiments around loss, like that feeling of loss. Like nobody wants to experience it, but that there is the beauty of the 3D reality,
Mm.
isn't it? Because it's only in that loss that we feel the physicality, and that's what I
Yeah.
was doing before. Is like, yes, it's
Yeah.
physical. That's the
Mm.
experience. We can experience it otherworldly, and that's fantastic and divine and fabulous, but really the tangible, like having people to connect with, to have in
Mm.
your experience, have it in your field. Like even this has that slight layer of separation, and we can't wait until the summit where we get to be in person, because that physical brings, it brings so much more.
Mm.
The physical brings the magic. You know,
Mm.
we are a sensory being. We're a
Absolutely.
tangible sensory being, and we need that connection, that physical
Mm.
connection, a hug. And,
Yeah.
some ladies come to get some salt lamps from me the other day. And when they were going to leave, because it turned out we were three very similar souls, which was rather wonderful. And we had a hug as they were leaving. And one of them said to me, "Oh my gosh, thank you for that powerful, amazing
Oh.
hug."
Mm.
And I thought, yeah, see, because we've been without them, the hugs, for that period
Mm,
of time, and it really
Yeah.
did create a difference in the way that we receive the physical energy. And that
Absolutely.
physical energy is so important in this world. It's what
So
this world's about. It's why
that's
everything's
it.
solid, right?
There's so many beautiful synchronicities here. We had a pre-recording before, but these pieces around free will, choice, we were tapping into the dodo bird energy, which went extinct with beautiful Mary Miller, and the valuing of life, the valuing of the senses and experiencing
Yes.
this world, and that choice of aligning to the higher self, to
mm,
the divine. And it just made me think about, particularly the last 10 years of my own growth and choosing meditation, choosing curious things like beautiful codes. And I didn't realize at the time they were light language codes that were beautifully colored and drawn, and going through some beautiful mantras that in language I didn't know, which was light language, but I was drawn to it. Reading books like The Law of One, Book of Ra, Convoluted Universe, like I was drawn to different things and aligning myself to be where I am today in order to tap into the wisdom that I'm aligned and the frequency that I'm aligned to access. And back then, when I was like calling in my higher self, I would see visions of things and I wasn't ready for it, like you said, or it would like take a while. Maybe that time frame wasn't yet. But now, because I had done all that work and explored through trial and error, tried, I suppose, and embodied different practices that I then got to choose were in my alignment. I started to really anchor in that grounding. And for me, it was like a grounding
Mm-hmm.
because I know now through certain experiences, like through breath work or through journeying or through other meditation experience where I've connected to God and source, and I felt it through the body. I've felt the energy and the pure love that just threw me back into tears. And it's like that I can't explain in my human form. And
mm,
to be prepared to hold that frequency and own it has been again another layer of honoring my sovereignty. And it's a process, it's an initiation. And the grief that you both spoke about, even in the stories, myself going through the grief period of miscarriage to experience the richness of that emotion and that depth of understanding was such a gift, because I wouldn't have ever experienced that depth of grief or rage or the emotional wealthiness, the wealth of the gamut of our humanness, which is, I see as such a gift. And I know it's hard for some people, because it's like, why am I feeling this, envy or jealousy or hatred, these shadow parts of ourselves that we then get to friend and play with and honor as well. Like this is part of it. So yeah, I loved how you encapsulated that together, because people's journeys are different. And the more we talk about our experiences, I know people that listen in will be like, oh, I resonate with Gwenda. I resonate with Flea. I resonate with Marie.
Yeah.
That's what I'm experiencing. Or that's what I'm noticing my children are experiencing, because the children are actually ready. They're awakened. They're ready. And I know this is a big part of the mission of Flea and I as well, that even you sharing these gifts of teleportation and tapping into the body, we're seeing those gifts, and we get to talk about that with them in obviously a sense of protectiveness, but with people and parents and communities that are ready to support not only each other as adults, but the children, because they will have gifts that we are not physically prepared for, because they are superhuman. We are superhuman. We're divine and human. And they're going to be doing things like teleport. Like, there's already kids doing telekinesis, like you said, remote viewing. The gifts are already online, but there's going to be more and more and more that we have never seen wired for. So I'm excited. And I know some people may go, oh, you just like sound like you're from a movie. But why not? Why not? And I feel it, It's so exciting, and it's also scary, and it's also a beautiful responsibility.
Well, that's what the School of Wesh is for, is to make sure that those children can be looked after, guided, and with others that understand them, so that you're in a community where you're all fine. Not like what happened when I was a child. I was a freak and had all sorts of nasty things happen because I just innocently spoke about what I could see and what I was looking at, and the other kids couldn't. And that's, to me, Marie, that's why, to me, the word gift is important, because if it's not a gift and it's not natural to everybody, then why don't those other children see the same thing as me? And why do they find me a freak because I share what I can see? And even as an adult now, I can't speak freely to everyone about what I'm able to see or able to do. It's still there. So to have the communities where we understand each other and we know what we're seeing and experiencing, it's really important. It's like I say to people, my spiritual school of Wesh is a little bit like Hogwarts, and going into the Middle Earth people, introducing you to the Middle Earth people and the giants and so forth, the elementals. I love it because it's just who I am. I mean, look, here's my dragon mate here. But if I was to go into a corporate environment, big banking organisation, or even a car yard, can you imagine? It just wouldn't fly, would it? And what I loved, Marie, was your words about embodying the practices. So when you're learning to align, when you're on the discovery path of finding out more about who you are beyond the physical and how to tap into that, it's not a tick box thing, is it, girls? It's not something that you get a PDF and you go, oh, tick that, yeah, I've done that, I've done that. It's not like that. It's not like going to school. You have to embody and integrate the practices without fail, meaning it becomes the way you live. It becomes the way that you are, the person you are. It's not a case of, oh, yeah, on Wednesday I've got to go out and weave a little conjuring up in the thing and do this. And then, oh, it's a full moon on Saturday, so I've got to go out and dance naked and woo. It's not like that. It is who you are and embodying them so that your true essence can really guide you and help you. When I was 40, I was super fit. I wanted to show women that just because you were 40 didn't mean that you had to have a floral frock and special curly, purpley coloured hair, and that you could look really good at 40. And I collapsed. I collapsed on my kitchen floor. I was meant to be going to training. I'd been working out to go into a fitness figure comp. So I was pretty tough with how I was looking. I worked hard for it and I collapsed. And long story short, I'm lucky to be here talking to you. Am I? Because I was dying and it turned out that I was pregnant with a baby up under my ribs.
Mm.
Now, I was super fit, so I was very lean, very muscled, and I had a baby under my rib cage.
Mm.
Now, if you know anything about the anatomy, a baby does not belong under the rib cage, right? Here's the kicker. I'd been sterile since I was 22. I didn't have any
Mm.
fallopian tubes, none, but I had a baby under my rib cage. So I was
Wow.
bleeding internally and I became a medical enigma. I had all different medical students come to see me in hospital. Because they left me too long, my mum thought I'd passed because she saw me appear next to her bed with my dad and I was in a white robe with a big lily.
Mm.
And she thought that I'd gone. They couldn't wake me out of the anaesthetic, probably because I was out with dad, skipping around, visiting everyone. It wasn't a funny journey. I make light of it, but it wasn't funny. The child was a boy, and he visited me every year on what would have been his birthday for 3 years until I said, no more, no more. I can't do this anymore. I lost so much blood. Remember, I was extremely fit. I lost so much blood that I couldn't speak. I couldn't eat. I could not do my hair. I couldn't have a shower. The experience of that was amazing to find and again see the fascination of the body and flee the mind.
Mm.
Fascination and wanting to understand it. And the surgeon's assistant came in and told me that I was to have a blood transfusion. I could not speak. All I could do was bat my eyelids because you got to. It's incredible when you don't have blood, all of the blood that you need in your body doesn't function, including your voice.
Mm.
So I couldn't talk. And here's this man telling me I had to have a blood transfusion, and I batting my eyes like, no way. And then I had to try and get the words out. And what I wanted to do was put them on the spot because of being a nurse. And what I wanted them to tell me was that I was 100% guaranteed of no chance, no risk of any problems from the blood transfusion, which I knew they couldn't do. So the surgeon turned up and was angry with me and said that I would be severely depressed because of my level of fitness and my inability to now be able to not do anything and not have any blood. She told me that I would be severely depressed. I wasn't buying that. So I had to rebuild all my blood and rebuild my body after that experience. And the grief from that was huge and very different to losing a loved one. So grief for me is something I don't think we do enough, not work, but I don't think we do enough sharing of the wisdom of grief
Mm.
and to be able to help people navigate through it, because that was a pivotal experience for me in my life, and then helping others through losing babies, children, but particularly a baby and your own life.
Mm.
So,
Mm.
yeah, rich. And I wouldn't want to call that part of me my shadow self for what it went through. That was a really powerful and life changing experience that is full of richness, full of wonder, heartache, agony, sorrow,
Mm.
a myriad. And that's what this life is, right? It's a myriad, it's a treasure of incredible experiences that we really can grow from, and also grow our alignment with our divine self and with the divine.
Mm.
And I just love what you girls are bringing to the world, and love that I can be part of this with you. Thank you for choosing me. It's a real pleasure.
Mm.
Yeah.
So beautiful. These cards that I've got in front of me as you were speaking. So I generally pull a spread. It has, from the time we started this, been an indicator as to what we speak about. And sometimes I pull them and show them as we're talking for that clarity. This obviously wasn't needed, but we were talking about the shadow card, and it's the one that was sitting on top of the pile. And I was like, okay, yeah, the way it's spread out and everything in front of me all tells a story as well. But on the cards, I actually write my own little interpretations. And what you were talking about there, so for most people, the shadow is that emotional fear. It's a moon card. It's that darkness within inside us, but it's the avoidance, and that's the thing that popped out to me at the top there. The avoidance of that shadow side, and yeah, you definitely cannot call it your shadow side because you're not avoiding that fear. You're facing it head on, and you're making the change, which I put down the bottom there. And that is exactly what you said, that the thing that needs to happen, we need to face these fears, the grief, the sorrow, the pain, the heartache, the energy. This is what I'm speaking about at the summit as well, because I love the energy work, how deeply impactful and powerful it is when we can understand the process and also the way in which it travels, the energy frequency, and how in that misery, in that sadness, everything is longer, everything takes longer. It's the little speed bumps in our life that, as you said, you were fit, you were healthy, you were in your
Mm.
prime. This is my life, this is where I'm going. If you'd continued on that path, you wouldn't have done half of the things that you've done now, which
Yeah.
is your higher destination.
Yeah.
And this is that beautiful wisdom that we get to sit in with this awareness that we are bringing, is that these things happen to propel us into the person we're meant to be. You may have wanted to be a football player and you broke your leg, or you had a major injury and you weren't allowed to do it. So instead you become something else. As long as you don't see it as a negative, if you don't sit in that shadow and avoid the emotions that are attached to it, you can take that wisdom anywhere, because through failure is how we really grow.
Yeah.
You cannot develop something to a level of mastery without having multiple layers of failure below that.
Yep. And pain.
It's the lived experience that is important, and that is
Mm.
the power. It's the light. It is the triumph that gets our passions ignited and gets us past that discontent and boredom. It lays the truth and the foundation in everything that we do.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Beautiful way to put it all together. I like boom, 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 boom. Whole spread in our conversation. Oh, well, Gwenda, I am so fascinated about your wealth of experience in your life. And I'm so excited that we get to spend a weekend with you. And our beautiful guests that are coming as well get to meet you, and folks that are listening in, if you are local and nearby, come along, because my goodness, it is going to be such a powerful network of people, a space that I feel like you're never going to forget because of the amazing, amazing speakers, facilitators, presenters, but also just being together and that live experience and just connection. All of these people that, Flea and I draw in are heart centered, genuine, divine people who are doing amazing everyday things and powerful, magnetic, big things in their lives and their communities. And folks, if you are not in Queensland, you can also tune in online as well. So please feel free to check out www.Awæcnian Academy. The spelling is underneath here. There it is. And that you can register for free. It is going live for free. And if you want access to the replays and the powerful content, you can also upgrade to VIP, which is so phenomenal. So phenomenal, the amount of content, the work that Flea has done behind the scenes and continues to do. I just honor you because I'm not doing it and you're doing it, and bless your heart and your mind and your soul to create beautiful spaces for people to come into. And folks, it's $150 to US to come online, but the wealth of these 30 plus people in this space is just gold. You know, if you're on that
Cheap out.
transformative, if you're on that transformative journey, it is going to be such a powerful tool. And if you want to connect with Gwenda specifically, Gwenda, how can people connect with you?
Thank you. They can reach out to me via my website, which is healwithgwenda.com. That's HEAL withgwenda.com. They can also go to the Facebook page, but if you want to connect with me, you need to go to the website.
Beautiful. Oh, well, thank you so much for your time. And we look forward to seeing you in 8-9 days, however many days, very soon. And folks, we'll see you guys next time. Actually, we have another beautiful podcast later. So tune in then, guys, and we'll chat with you soon. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Bye.
Bye.